Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the Syndicate forces of Nameless seized the crown of Monarch's Bluff. Nameless leadership were extremely busy organizing mission boards and debriefing, but did pause a moment to accept our congratulations.
Thank you very much.
KOTT news crews were invited to the hot springs in Ebonscale following the Cutlass Keys fight and ran into Secret's leadership.
They had a strong initial push, hitting us both on B and C, and they definitely did a great job applying pressure there. We did end up finally then dropping B as well, moving just to C. And about 15 minutes left, they pushed us back into the fort where we were excited to get to sharpen our fort skills because it had been a while since we had been pushed that far back behind the walls. And so it was fun for us to get to participate in that part of the simulated combat. We had forgotten some of the things that we used to do.
Turning to the weather, and it's another beautiful morning all day long again, with only a 10% chance of invasion late evening in the Fen. 2 roster submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPGO. Remember, if it isn't LARPGO, it's cardboard. Up first, the Covenant forces of Booty Clapital attack the Marauders of Cluty Bapital for control of the bear-infested deep forests of Brightwood. The forces of Booty Clapital attack the Citadel, except this time they've seen the spark, as first reported by KOTT News. For Cluty Bapital, formerly known as Rending 4, the defense of their capital from the forces of Booty Clapital is their top priority. Then, the Covenant forces of Gilded Outlaw slog into the mud and assail the Syndicate forces of Stronghold for regional control of the always restless shore. Gilded Outlaw are making their 3rd appearance after introducing themselves to the server with a double header early in the month. Stronghold have already fended off a former great house just 4 days ago, but if you think they're going to take it easy in the next one, you're sorely mistaken. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news, and this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as both great houses hold their ground and continue to showcase what makes them so great. KOTT News caught up with Stronghold leadership and discussed incentives to attract more visitors to the hamlet.
Yeah, more benefits to do farming. We're actually one of the best areas I'd recommend for getting that thick hide. And we finally upgraded the Arcana so you can at least break down your mass majority of modes into wisps and get some massive territory standing for Restless if you don't have it.
So come on down to the latest branch of Q&Muse Leather Emporium and get your free leather today and every day. Faction restrictions apply. Turning to the weather, and it's another beautiful morning all day long in Eternum until later in the evening once again when a 30% chance of invasion will occur. 4 Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolutions on tap for tonight, brought to you by LARPGO. Remember, if it isn't LARPGO, it's cardboard! Up first, the Covenant forces of what's this? The Spice Lords assault the Syndicate forces of Squirrel Scrubbers for control of First Light and the flow of the spice. The story of Spice Lords seems pretty clear. They seek to establish dominion over First Light and control the island's flow of spice. For the actual reigning Spice Lords of First Light, this level of challenge cannot go undeterred. They'll bring out their best, because the spice must flow. Then, the Covenant forces of Milkit attack the Syndicate forces of Secrets for control of the bamboo forest preserves and medicinal hot springs of Ebonscale. Former Great House Milkit and its affiliated faction members were once regional emperors of the hot springs, before letting them fall into disrepair and abandoning them. Conversely, the forces of Secret have continued to improve the amenities, so the citizens are really rooting for the home team tonight. Meanwhile, the Marauders of Blunderpade challenge the champs of Black Wolves Company for their championship title and the right to rule over Everfall. Newcomer Blunderpage steps into the ring with a hope and a dream of becoming the next heavyweight champ and starting their own streak. For the current champions of Everfall, this will be their third defense of the fort, as they strive to reach third place in the Neverfall list, currently held by the Reckoning, with 5. In the nightcap, the syndicate forces of Strawberry break into the banks of the financial capital of Windsward and attempt to steal it away from the marauders of Bird Mode. Newcomer Strawberry become the latest on the list of first-timers making the big play in an attempt to secure future funding of their endeavors. But Bird Mode doesn't care about the money. What they care about is being in a position that invites such frequent conflict resolution events. We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. Dynamic change in the history of Eternum last night as the forces of Milkit, in partnership with Regime, reacquire the regional resort town of Ebonscale. We met with Milked Regime leadership at City Hall. I'm here in Ebonscale with Darva, who recently acquired the region via conflict resolution out at the Fort of Ebonscale. How do you think it went out there today, Darva?
I think it was a pretty competitive war. We did our best to try to apply tri-point pressure, and then we took the fort with, I think, around 10 minutes to go. It was a pretty competitive war, felt good. I want to say GG's to Secrets.
Excellent. Secrets, I'm sure. Tough competitors out there, but they can appreciate the competition. Now that you do have Ebonscale, would you care to declare what your intentions are for the hamlet?
Yeah, I think number one, we're going to do our very best to milk it here for all it's worth. We really love Ebonscale. We've got a lot of members that have already had homes here. We plan to keep everything upgraded and make sure everything is top-notch in this zone.
We appreciate that. I'm sure the members of the Ebonscale Tourism Council are going to appreciate that you're going to continue to maintain the infrastructure here. Is there anything else you'd like to add to the community of Eternum at large?
Yeah, I just want to say there's obviously been a lot of rumors flying around about Regime maybe collapsing or whatever's going on because of us losing Everfall and Windsor. A lot of those were definitely pretty bad defeats. We just want to say that rumors of Regime's demise were greatly exaggerated, and we're here to stay. We're going to be pushing every day, making sure that we get our name back on the map.
Turning to the weather, and as it does every day in Eternum, the sun will rise in the morning and set at night, having a beautiful day before a 20% chance of invasion will occur, so plan your travel accordingly. Only one submission for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPCO. Remember, if it isn't LARPCO, it's cardboard. It's a nightcap matchup tonight between the Syndicate forces of Faceless and the Covenant forces of Lost Templar for control of the primary oil reserves of Weaver's Fen. Faceless returned to the peat moss-covered fen again after taking a month and a half to reevaluate their attack strategies. Lost Templar make their third defense of the fen, all of which have been against Syndicate forces, most recently Nameless. Is this a rematch? Will the outcome be different? Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as the forces of Lost Templar stand their ground in the peat moss oil fields of Weaver's Fen. Speaking of no change, it's another beautiful morning all day long again until late evening when a 20% chance of invasion will occur. 5 submissions for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight brought to you by LARPCO. Remember, if it isn't LARPCO, it's cardboard. First up, the Covenant forces of Tempest's Fury attack the Syndicate forces of Washed Millennials for the northernmost region of Morningdale. Tempest's Fury make their first attack on the island by attempting to gain forward access to the northern Death Wall. Washed Millennials have held the region for a few weeks now and have grown accustomed to fighting in the frequent rains. Then, the Covenant forces of Hex Akan assault the Syndicate forces of Nameless for their crown and the right to rule the Monarch's Bluff. Hex Akan make their second attempt to secure land on the island, once again assaulting the bluff. For Nameless, their first defense of the keep since securing the crown 4 days ago. Will they be able to respond as well as they initiated? Meanwhile, the Covenant forces of Here Be Monsters assail the Marauders of Landlord for control of the master fishing port town of Reekwater. The forces of Here Be Monsters have been attempting to take land for over a month now, each time testing a new great house. This time, it's the landlords who have regrouped and consolidated all their might into focusing on the region most important to them. Up next, the Marauders of ABN INF attack the Covenant forces of Milked Regime for control of the bamboo forest preserves and medicinal hot springs of Ebonscale. Little is known about the newcomers of ABN INF. Are they here for the region specifically, or is this the fight they could get? The consolidated forces of Milked Regime have held multiple regions since swimming ashore on day 1, and now they're comfortable fighting together. In the nightcap, the Covenant forces of Here Be Monsters assail the Syndicate forces of Secrets for control of the secondary oil reserves of Cutlass Keys. Here Be Monsters have cast aside legal shenanigans and commit wholeheartedly to conquest in the name of the Spark. Secret forces have consolidated in controlling the keys and its oil reserves for now. Will having only one region help them focus? We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as all 5 great houses hold court. KOTT news crews were in Morningdale covering the event when we noticed a new local hotspot. A fully stocked wine bar sets the mood with aperitifs and cordials leading to the main dinner. On a terraced, formal dining platform giving guests a panoramic view of the Canal District. An outstanding stop along the way should you find yourself in Morningdale someday. Turning to the weather, and you could say the sun isn't going to rise in the morning, but you'd be wrong, because once again, it's a beautiful day all day long, until late evening Arctic blasts may cause invasions in Weaver's Fen. 2 rosters submitted for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPGO. Remember, if it isn't LARPGO, it's cardboard. Up first, the Syndicate forces of Bontext attack the Marauders of Dontext for the bear-infested northern forests of Brightwood. For context, Bontext enters the woods in order to reclaim what was once founded by Syndicate forces. For Dontext, in context, formerly known as Apeguard, formerly known as any M10ers, are Marauders at heart, and will take and hold what they can. Then, the Covenant forces of Young Money assail the Syndicate forces of Stronghold for control of the always contentious Restless Shore. Former Great House Young Money attempt to secure the most turbulent region on the island. For Stronghold, they've grown accustomed to the anarchy of the archipelago and look forward to fighting in the mud. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello Eternum and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night as both great houses continue to reign over their respective regions. But there was a change in the way rabbits have been behaving lately, as the island's corruption has begun to influence them. We spoke with Rabbit Representative Stanley on his island sanctuary for displaced rabbit kind. Stanley, thank you for meeting with me. JChalant, KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. Stanley, do you have anything to do with these corrupted rabbits? You say you have nothing to do with it, but it's infecting the other rabbits here? You also hope someone can find the cause and stop it, and that you want peace for the island. That's so noble, Stanley. KOTT News can report that the community has moved swiftly to bring about rabbit peace.
Peace for the bunnies has been declared.
Turning to the weather, and it's going to be a sunny day all morning long, well into late afternoon, before tropical swells from the southern tips will push invasions inland around the edges of the island. For Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPCO, remember, if it isn't LARPCO, it's cardboard. First up, the Covenant forces of Hexacon assail the Syndicate forces of hooded outcasts for control over First Light and its abundant spice flow. While Hexacon is no stranger to declaring war, this will be their first attempt to unthrone the reigning Spice Lords. For Hooded Outcast, they've held the region for well over a month, cultivating its abundant resources and dominating the flow of spice. Meanwhile, the Syndicate forces of Battlesnakes attack the Covenant forces of Milked Regime for control of the bamboo forest preserves and medicinal hot springs of Ebonscale. Battlesnakes make their second attempt to secure land on the island after failing against the landlords in Monarch's Bluff 2 weeks ago. Milked Regime make their second defense of the regional resort destination getaway in as many days. They've hardly had time for a soak in its fabled hot springs. Then, the Syndicate forces of Sausage and Friends attempt to rob the Marauders of Reformed Guard of their ownership of the financial capital of Windsward. Newcomers, Sausage and Friends, begin their journey towards island conquest by starting where so many often do, in order to secure funding for future endeavors. But once again, it must be noted that Reformed Guard does not care about the financial incentives associated with holding Windsward, only the combative opportunities. And finally, in the main ring, the Covenant forces of Regime challenge the Syndicate forces of Black Wolves Company for their heavyweight championship title and the right to rule over Everfall. Unsatisfied by the 29-minute loss, Regime returns to declare their right of rematch and attempt to reclaim their championship belt. For Black Wolves Company, they've had 3 successful title defenses so far, but will that extra experience translate into a win here tonight? We'll have the outcomes and reactions from the citizens tonight at 11. Until then, this has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News. Hello, Eternum, and welcome to KOTT News, Eternum's #1 source for news. And this is the War Report. No change in the dynamic of Eternum last night, as all 4 great houses keep their respective keeps and beat their respective peeps. KOTT news crews were in Windsward after the heist, but no one was available for comment. However, we did meet with housing enthusiast Cecil to tour their home and learn a trick or two about earning a Top House award.
We got the telescope. That's, I like to stargaze at night. I've got Jimmy here. That's my pet lion.
Hey, buddy.
I've got my kitchen going, so everybody can come in, sit at the bar, have a good time. Eating Thanksgiving dinner, whatever it might be. And then I can cook you up something if you're hungry, anytime. Awesome. So I like to read books by the fire. Get you a good read. I've got empty shelves here, the junk drawers. It's where you find all the batteries and screwdrivers.
The catch-alls.
That's right. All right, I've got my treasure chest here. Got lots of goodies in there. More books, Just like to sit right here whenever people are walking through my house. Now, you see that chandelier behind you?
Chandelier. Yes.
Yeah, above the table. So I'm not even gonna play. This was a very expensive piece. It was 40,000 gold, and it's very rare.
After the tour, we asked what the most difficult aspect of home ownership was.
The cost in trying to buy his sop.
The herb you pick that's purple all over the island. What does that have to do with housing?
So I make alkahest with it. And whenever you make alkahest, you get a ton of territory standing.
If you want more inside scoops like that, be sure to check out the guides on Cecil's channel for more. Turning to the weather, and it's going to be an unbearably hot day all morning long as the sun cruises across Eternum, until northern cold fronts will begin to chill things out, bringing a 15% chance of invasion with them. Only one lineup submission for Simulated Fantasy Combat Resolution tonight, brought to you by LARPCO. Remember, if it isn't LARPCO, it's cardboard. Tonight, The marauders of Grim Heathen assail the syndicate forces of Hooded Outcast for the abundant spice flow of First Light. Grim Heathens have been lurking in the shadows a few weeks now and have decided to strike when the Spice Lords are tired. But fighting on back-to-back nights isn't a problem for the armies of Hooded Outcasts, whose eyes have begun glowing purple from their excessive use of the spice. Be sure to tune in for complete coverage and reactions from the citizens at 11 until then. This has been War Correspondent JChalant, KOTT News.